Welcome back to the Worldwise Wealth Podcast. In this episode, I sit down with Mukarram. Now, this is a very insightful conversation. He has been the Chief Investment Officer at Blackstone Commodity Group for a number of years. And in this position, he specializes in alternative investments and commodities. And he has over 20 years of experience in alternative investments and commodities in the global market. So, in this conversation, not only do we talk about traditional investment, we also really focus on gold and silver, which are the precious metals that he focuses on for his own investments and client investments, but also some further alternative assets such as cryptocurrency and property. Now, not property in the US market, but property abroad. So, we really talk about how this alternative investment strategy is getting him and his clients year after year returns, but we also talk about how he is giving back and shaping the next generation of Americans, the younger Gen Z generation, and how he is helping them to change how they think about investing. With that, let's dive into the episode.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. I really appreciate that. I think we have a fun show planned, right, for the listeners. First, I think the way it all happened for me is I was a pre-med, right? And then I was on my way to med school. And then I remember one day when I was at the University of Miami, Jacksonville Hospital, one day doing a kind of a pre-med school summer program. And I noticed that out of the 14 people who were chosen to be in that program from college, 13 people were excited to be there and I wasn't. And when I knew that inside of me, I felt like I need a change. So long story short, there was a lot of family issues with that change that I made. But then I knew that trading and becoming a trader in the financial world was very interesting to me, and I was very passionate about it. And then I continued in that progress. In that line of my career. I was very fortunate to have some amazing mentors with God's blessings. And then from there, I went on to having partnerships and ownerships in commodity trading firms. And then finally in 2008, 2009, when I saw the market changing, we started having a significant exposure to alternative assets. And we caught the biggest run in the gold bull market in 2008 to 2011. We helped a lot of clients protect their money during that big crash. And then since then, the rest is history, right? We've been expanding into the alternative asset space, cryptocurrency. We watched the cryptocurrency market for a while, didn't get involved right away. But then once we got the understanding of it, it became a matured asset class that we believe we want to be in. Then, we had clients investing in cryptocurrency in IRAs, precious metals, physical metals. We'll go over that later. So that's how so I've been doing this for about 20 years, and the company's been there for about 15 years. And mostly we help clients who want to protect their assets and grow their assets with alternative assets.
Interesting. Okay, thank you for that explanation. So, precious metals is the core focus what it started as, but it sounds like you've grown into other opportunities that you have seen the longer you've been in this market.
Yeah, because when we started into precious metals, yes, that was our core, because we did it coming from being a player coach kind of thing, right? We're still playing, right, while we're coaching. So that's what's great. I don't think if you're not relevant or if you're not doing it right now, you should not be trying to teach that to other people, So to me, I always believe that. So when we came into precious metals, we came in there from a professional trader's mindset. We believed the stock market was significantly overbought. We knew that certain fundamental events could bring that down, and gold will have an inverse relationship to that, right? But then afterwards, our vision started looking at more the inverse correlation to the dollar, because we believe that the country, the United States, was going into a financial decision-making debacle where we believe that the dollar will get weakened over time. And that's where we started getting exposure into very different alternative assets, cryptocurrency, real estate, and then in the last few years, international opportunities, right? Because we believe that there will be a inverse correlation between international currencies and the dollar, and there's more opportunities there. So real estate, especially outside the US, is very attractive to us.
Interesting that you mentioned in their real estate, specifically outside of the US. So I'm curious. So we're talking about precious metals. You mentioned crypto, real estate, specifically international real estate. What do you see when a client comes to you? What do you see a lot of clients are initially looking for? Do you guide them in which direction makes sense for the portfolio that they already have, the portfolio that they're looking to build? What does that journey with a client look like?
Well, I think one of the most important things, and this was kind of a founding principle for me when we did that pivot, right, in 2008, 2009, I felt like there was a lack of education in the marketplace, especially financial education on a one-on-one basis with your clients, because clients would call us saying, hey, I kept leaving messages to my broker and he's not picking up the phone. He's not calling me back. And they're losing money like the market's coming down. That's just usual, right? Usual practice in these brokerage houses. Because there's this avoidance, right? People have not done self-work within themselves that, you have to help someone that you said you're going to help them. Even though you can go through a very tough time, you can lose money, but you want to make sure that you are working together as a team and coming up with a way to either make that money back or to protect you from losing that, right? So at that time period, for us, it was education, education, education. And we got a lot of sometimes slack from like senior traders in other firms where when I would go to dinner or something, it's like, hey, how come you're teaching them all these things? I'm like, because an educated client is a powerful client, a knowledgeable client. And then together we can accomplish powerful things together. And that's what allowed us to first, we went into metals because it was just a professional trader mindset. But after that, as we went into the dollar, looking at the dollar, then clients came to us and there were some distinct categories of clients. Some clients will come to us because they just did not believe in the dollar, right? They wanted to diversify into something that wasn't exposed to the dollar or wasn't exposed to all their, financial clown show that's been going on, right? Then others came to us with saying, hey, I want a net worth appreciation. How do I get net worth appreciation? You have to go into alternative assets because net worth appreciation happens when you can go up significant percentages in your portfolio, right? So for example, if you look at a normal portfolio, if you get an 8%, 15% and you're happy, that's not going to lead to net worth appreciation. But you see Bitcoin go from 6,000 to 19,000, 2000, like that time period, from 14 to 17. Or you get like a Solana go from $80 to $260. Now you're going to get net worth appreciation. That's what we started doing for our clients because it was something that we're doing for ourselves. So we felt like, hey, why don't we teach clients on how to think like a hedge fund? Go from one asset class to another rather than just continuing to hold it, saying, oh, when I'm 65 years old, 75 years old, I'll begin to live my life, right? Which is something I don't transcribe to. I believe that you deserve to live the way you want to live, right now, and then continue to increase your net worth. But in order to do that, there's going to be work, tough decisions that you have to make. And that's what we help our clients with.
Okay, a lot to dive into there. I had this question for a little bit later on in the interview, but we're here, so I want to ask you now, if we're looking at international real estate and also crypto, what are some jurisdictions, some projects when it comes to crypto that you are pretty bullish on in the long term? And then I'm also curious, are you investing these crypto assets for clients? You mentioned putting them into IRAs. What does that look like?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, Nicole, right? Because this is also part of my philosophy. I believe in what I call the best of breed, okay? Whatever you're doing, you have to choose the best of breed, okay? Now, you could like Dogecoin or you could like different animal coins, but we don't do that, okay? Because what we like to is the best of breed. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, like layer one, layer twos that have a lot of utility. So first of all, we don't invest in crypto projects, okay? I don't like that because there's a lot of like issues there, scams. We don't want to be involved in that. What I like is something that can be backed by math. And for me, I look at cycles. So we invest in the actual coin, whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana or a couple others, right? But we're not a Bitcoin only kind of person. See, a lot of people come to us and say, oh, would you buy Bitcoin right now? I would buy it, but I would rather buy something else that has a higher percentage return going up with Bitcoin, right? So that's why I believe in Solana significantly right now, because we were in Bitcoin when it was at, last time when it dropped, it went to drop 16,000 or so. We got in at 23, and then we got out in the 50s when the ETF was approved, right? And then we went to Ethereum, and Ethereum went its way. So like you can see, we follow a trader mentality onto this, right? We're not sitting here and holding Bitcoin to 1 million. That's not what we're doing, okay? And then what we'll leverage Bitcoin's movements onto something else. So that's why we believe, if your money is counseled correctly and you put it in the right place, you're not leveraging your money, because I don't like leverage, but what you're doing is you're leveraging the price move. So if Bitcoin goes to 120 or 150, some other coins, that the proprietary mix that we look at, could go up significantly percentage-wise for you. So that's how we approach crypto, okay? Real estate, for us, we did a lot of real estate in Florida, right? But I started diversifying internationally because the market became saturated in the US. Prices went up too much, and the flip wasn't profitable anymore. It wasn't the right time to do the flip. Okay, even though there's a couple different ways we do the flip that makes it profitable, because we bring a lot of our stuff from Turkey when we do the flip, right? So like, especially with the Turkish lira depreciating over the last few years, it helped a lot, even with COVID and shipping rates and all that. But why I like international real estate is because and this is, something when it comes to trading and investing, you have to get good at. It's not what is in the news right now, or it's not what someone's talking to you, or your dinner conversations, or your water cooler conversations. It's whether you can see something behind the wall. For us, we believe that as the euro depreciated and the dollar appreciated before the election, we do believe that over time the dollar will depreciate, and therefore rental income, properties in major cities, like for example Bangkok and Portugal, Portugal. Your dollar goes further in these countries, right? Because the dollar had an appreciating cycle in the last few years. So that was the time to use the dollar to buy the properties, okay? And now, once you position yourself, even now there's a lot of time, you can then reap the benefits of that decision, because the dollar, as it depreciates, will make not only your capital that you invested in the real estate appreciate, but also, like we're seeing with tourism increasing now, right? A lot of income can come in as well. So that's why we prefer international real estate, because you can make your dollars go further outside, and you can have a paid off property. So what I do is, I don't want to take too long on this, I love to get into an asset. Like, I'll give you an example. We had a client who was in metals from 2016, right? And the metals went up significantly in 2020. We got out of metals, and then went into and then took the profits out of the metals, helped her buy a paid off multi-unit property in Mexico, and then took the capital from that IRA, transferred into Ethereum when Ethereum had dropped to about 1,100. And then that Ethereum went up to almost 3,000, 3,500, about 6 months ago or so, got out and took the profits and did something else. So what I mean by that is, allow one alternative asset, if you come in at the right cycles, to appreciate, then take the profit out and diversify that into a paid off alternative asset. That's how you increase net worth.
I love this. Thank you for going into detail of that. And so in you saying all of this, there's a lot of different markets, a lot of things going on behind the scenes here. I know for myself, I am very bullish on, like you, certain cryptos, and I'm very much so in the market of cryptos, not just buying and holding, but liquidity pools and staking. But I'm curious, if you're having to choose one of these core assets, precious metals, crypto, international real estate in general, where are you telling clients right now that they're going to be getting the best returns, and where they should start with their investments?
Yeah. So right now, I'll be cautious with gold. Okay. Why? Because gold's gone up $1,000 in less than a year. Gold does not do that. Okay. So I want all your audience, your listeners, to understand this. Gold is not an asset that's designed to double its price or go up 60, 70% in a year. If it does that, take your profit. Because if you don't take it, the market will take it for you. Okay? That's one of our rules. So you got to understand the personalities of markets. For example, I traded crude oil significantly early in my career. I still do it. Cryptocurrency has its own personality, right? Gold and silver have their own personalities. The better opportunity in metals right now is silver, because silver has not even gone past its record high from 2011. April 2011, silver was 49.5. Right now, it's languishing somewhere in the low 30s, right? Whereas gold has had more 40 plus record highs in 1 year. Okay. Its record high was 1,921 in 2011, and it went to 3,400 or so. So that's why just to help your audience understand this, we look at a concept called overbought and oversold when we look towards getting into an asset and getting out of an asset. And just simply put, overbought is when the market is saturated with buying and the market will find it very difficult to go higher after it comes to a point, even though all of the FOMO is going to be there, right? Everyone wants to get in there. But the next highest probability direction for that market is to turn around and come down, which is what we believe gold is, right? It's overbought. So then we look at what's an oversold market right now? Cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency took a massive dive, right, in the last few months. Like Bitcoin didn't drop as much, but if you look at Solana, right, from 260 or 295 to 110, some of the other coins, that's where you should be building your position in. Now, I know it's difficult, okay, because people have fear and they panic and they like to see something moving before they get into it, right? But if you look at it, nothing, and here's how we dissect this. When you go from one market to another, and if you're panicking, if you're worried because that other market has come down significantly, sometimes even more than what you thought it would come down, cryptocurrency for an example, right? Look around and see if the fundamental story has changed. Nothing has changed in cryptocurrency. Actually, after the elections, only very positive things have happened. But you can't focus on it because you're worried so much about everything else, right? The market dropping, stock market, everything. So this is why I believe the next major net worth appreciating opportunity is going to be in cryptocurrency going forward, because we're also in the year after halving. So there's a lot of time left for that high to form. If you haven't gotten into metals, don't buy gold, buy silver. Because once this correction happens in gold, the run's most likely going to be in silver rather than gold, right? Even though I just want to be very, very accurate here. If gold drops like $200-$300, silver will pull back. It's okay, but there's a massive arbitrage opportunity.
I'm curious in talking about all this. We're talking about assets that are slightly to more than slightly volatile. So human emotion comes to play into this, and fear and greed also comes into play into this. How do you maintain expectations and just expectations in general in clients when their human emotion side comes into investing and you are the mental side of knowing where the market's going to be going, but they are not there with you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things I want to peel some layers there, okay, in that question, because number one, I think the biggest disadvantage that retail investors have is their definitions of words that have been fed to them. Okay. For example, volatility is not a bad thing. Volatility is required in order for you to make money, whether you're long or short. It's how you harness the energy behind that volatility and have the risk management that allows you to make significant amounts of money. So don't run away from volatility. Be able to absorb it, lean into that volatility, because volatility is what makes you money. But this is what I do with my trading, coaching, and all that, right? But there's two types of volatilities. One, what I call sensible volatility, and another that I call nonsensical volatility, right? Stay away from markets that begin to show nonsensical volatility. Every market will go through a cycle where it'll begin being nonsensical, then it'll have sensible volatility, and then it'll go into nonsensical again. That's your sign to get in and get out, okay? Quick definition on sensible volatility. Markets that don't take out previous days' lows and previous days' highs on a daily basis, because nonsensical volatility is when it does that, right? So that will tell you when a breakout's coming or a breakdown's coming. So that's one thing. So don't worry about volatility. Just understand it or work with people who have leaned into it and enjoy it, okay? That doesn't mean that they're foolish about it. The other thing is this understanding of risk. Again, The entire nation has been fed this story that risk is bad, risk is bad, risk is bad. Risk is not bad. It's just a term, okay? It's a requirement. It's just how you manage the risk. So let me give you a point. Risk, or the existence of risk, does not mean that you're guaranteed to lose money. Because if you're guaranteed to lose money, then you're also guaranteed to make money. So we all know we're not guaranteed to make money, right? So the risk itself is not the problem. It's the management of the risk. Because by coming up with the strategies on managing your risk, you can increase the probability of you making money and reduce the possibilities of you losing. Okay, so that's important. Why do I say this? Because everyone who's listening, or who has a financial advisor or bankers, and then they go in, it's almost like they put risk in. They make you so afraid of risk that they put you in Alcatraz, take your money, and make you look at the bay and say how beautiful the view is, right? Whereas they get to go build the bay. You have to build your bay, right, in your life. And that's why I'm saying don't get afraid of risk. Just understand risk, or work with people who are zen when it comes to this stuff. And that's my third point. Find ways to become self-aware, because emotions cannot be taken out of investing, and emotions can never be taken out of trading. I've heard lots of people say, oh, you shouldn't have emotions when you're trading or investing. That's just nonsense, okay? You are an emotional human being, like you said, right? We've been created with emotions. But what you have to do is you have to have an emotional intelligence. And the way your emotional intelligence improves is if you become self-aware. Like, one of the things that I do when I coach traders is I ask them in my first consulting session, I go, what are your worst like qualities? Do you get frustrated? Do you have revenge mentality? Do you get angry? Now, we're not going to eliminate that, but we're going to understand that and then know what's beneficial, what's not. Because you need to know how to work with your personality, and then evolve it. And one of the best ways to evolve and self-evolve is mindfulness meditation. Okay? You have to learn mindfulness meditation over time, or take some kind of an activity that leads to that. Even yoga helps with mindfulness meditation, Tai Chi, any of these things. Because that's what will allow you, when all this nonsense is going around you, to understand the real picture behind.
I love that you included that, and thank you for listing those out. And I think it's really interesting because when people are thinking about trading and investment, especially global investments, you're not thinking of the mindset that goes on behind that. But it's really interesting. It sounds like this is really one of the cores that you teach initially, is to know your why and have a solid mindset behind that so that you can become successful.
Yeah, see, that's beautiful that you said know your why. Because, in the last 4 months, I've had so many panicked clients call me and try to panic me, right? They want to put that energy on you, even though they know they're depending on you to be that kind of stable figure and zen with everything that's going on. Now, we'll be the first one to get out of a position if we believe the fundamentals have changed. We're not going to just hold a position just because, we think we're right? I believe the market is always right. It's not you. Whether you're right or wrong, the market will always be right. So you have to listen to the market. But that's what I mean by know your why. I love the way you said that, because then when things are going on in the news or in the world that you want to react to, you don't want to just make a decision based on something that's not related to your why. And if you work together with people who are very in tune with themselves in this arena, it will help you. Like, for example, instead of calling and panicking me, it's better for us. So I always tell a client, hey, let's talk about where this panic is coming from. And then we figure out together on how to become successful, right? Now, some clients don't evolve. Like, you could be 50 years, 60 years, 70 years old, and you still haven't evolved. You have a lot of issues that you're dealing with yourself. So the personality comes inside your investing, and then it blocks you from attaining something, right? Because I'm sure you've heard this. A lot of people sometimes, when they call me and they say, Mukarram, I've always lost money. How do you think you're going to make money? And I'm like, well, that's great. If that's the first conversation we're going to have, right? And then we start to break that down and then figure out how to help them.
Interesting. It sounds like Yeah, like some initial mindset coaching therapy around that before actually going into the strategic coaching, which I think is extremely important. And I love that that's a pillar of what you do.
Yeah, you have to do that because ultimately, like I always say this, all the research that you do before you invest can be complicated, but your execution has to be simple. And the only way that execution is going to be simple is if you can simplify this entire aspect. Like, for example, right now, when you invest in crypto, there's so many things you can be worried about, right? But if the execution is simple and you know, hey, this is the mathematically primed area that I want to get into, and these are the things that's telling me that I should be in it, then you hit the buy button.
Yeah, make it as simple as possible. Okay, so I want to talk about you have a program, an initiative around empowering young investors. So how did that start and what does that look like? Because I think that's very interesting that you're giving back and you're really giving back to the next generation. I think that I don't know how it was for you, but I know that for me and for many of those around me in my generation, we were taught almost nothing about investing except for invest in a few stocks that maybe parents or family friends are interested in, invest in the S&P 500. And that was kind of that. So I'm curious what it looks like and how you're giving back to this next generation.
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple, right? Especially in the last maybe 10 years. I have kids, I have young kids as well. I've noticed that there's a massive shift when it comes to the behavioral models on success. Okay. And I'm going to break this down. And I've seen this with my own children, and that's why I've been helping them and then figuring this out. It's all because of social media. Okay. Now, I'm not against social media. I love all the great things it does. But what I noticed in the last 10 years, or maybe even especially in the last 5 years or so, is that the kids, the younger and younger they are, they're beginning to realize, hey, I can make money without studying. I can make money without going to college. I can become a millionaire because this guy on YouTube made 2 million from one show. Whatever, right? Which is fine. I love the social economy. I love the fact this is what we live for. This is our philosophy. We want people to make significant amounts of money no matter what your age. But here's the problem. They don't have a learning process with money, right? So, for example, when I hear my 10-year-old tell me or my 13-year-old tell me, hey, I don't really need to go to college because I see this person. I'm like, yeah, but do they know how to sustain that business? Do they know how to scale it? Now, okay, maybe the traditional models of education have changed. Maybe college is not the best place. I'm not saying that, right? But let's entertain that for a conversation, right? Especially with everything going on now, okay? But if they need to know the difference between studying and learning, because there are some people who just don't like to study, but they love to learn, okay? But how do you teach them a skill that they can learn and then become extremely independent in their life? So that's why I started this program. It's called the Young Trader of the Year program, right? And it's to educate students between the ages of 16 and 22. And I specifically chose that age group because I felt like I want to get there before they leave high school. Okay. And I want to get to individuals who are about to graduate or have a year left in college because they still have ways to formulate what they want to do with their lives. Okay. Because what I've noticed is they want freedom, but they don't know how to learn. They want to make lots of money because nowadays you tell someone you're going to make 100 grand a year, it's not going to work. Okay. You tell a 22-year-old, hey, you could get a job after studying all this and you can make $150,000 a year. They're like, what? I just saw my friend on YouTube, or not friend, but the following guy, he made 3 million last year. Okay. So then how do we get there without losing your children, without losing the youth? That's by showing them a skill that they can make unlimited amounts of money, but they still have to learn the process. Because, this happens with adults. They come to me and say, hey, Mukarram, I want to learn how to trade. I want to make lots of money. I'm like, okay, but, I don't want to work. I don't want to work. I'm like, well, That's where you get this wrong, because there's more work in trading. Like, I wake up earlier than I used to when I, would work somewhere else, right? There's more work in trading and more discipline compared to having a traditional job. But once you change that mindset and you let them fall in love, like I've seen some young kids come to me and then say, hey, like, I can now see purpose in my life. I believe that I can make a big difference in my family's life or in my own life later, and I don't have to listen to everybody who tries to hold me back, because I teach the concept of limitlessness, because markets are limitless, right? That's when you can make a serious change in these people and this community, in the youth community. And the other thing that I believe that they're not being taught, which trading teaches, is decision-making skills. Decision-making is the most important thing in your life. Like, if you look at even your peers or even people older than you, you'll notice that when they did not know the decision-making matrix or have not been taught that, that's when they make horrible decisions early on in their life, right? And then when they're 40 or 50, they're talking about how they wish they had done this and done this, but the decisions will never allow that. So this is what we also focus on, and teaching kids on how to make great decisions and what are the steps that will allow the correct decisions for significantly positive results in your life. And that's part of the program, the Young Trader. If you want me to describe the program, it's very simple. We have an application process, and then they'll go through it. There's some questions that's based to find out if you have the personality to do this. And if you go through that application process and you get there, then there's a group of 10 or 12 students that we select for the competition. And they have about 12 sessions where we go over all of these things. And in those sessions, 75%, I teach people 75% is mental in investing and trading. 25% is skill. So that's why every session we're improving their mental game, right? And then after that, 2 groups are chosen, either 3 individuals or 2 teams. And they're given $10,000. And they can trade that. The one who has the best percentage return on the trades gets to keep all the money. And then from there, I've had students reach out to me saying, hey, I never knew I wanted to do this, but now I want to do an internship. I want to learn, how can I do this later, right? And I think we're making a positive impact there, because the students are learning more than just the skill of trading. They're learning how to build a successful life.
Thank you for sharing all of that. It sounds like you're doing some really forward-thinking, innovative work that I hope continues to grow in every society and culture, but definitely in the West. And it's interesting when you were speaking about the mentality, and I do also agree. I think social media has such a large presence in shaping the mindset of younger generations. It's really interesting to me because what's the number one job that all young people want to be?
A YouTube?
I'm curious if you know.
Is
A
it YouTube?
YouTuber. They all want to be a YouTuber. And what I always say to that, because I mean, my partner, he's quite a big influencer, not on specifically, but in Latin America. And we, to a degree, kind of know the content game. And I always say, like, that's amazing, but it's a business at the end of the day. And I think it's over glamorized any industry where I think the top 10 jobs I was seeing the other day online, any of those top 10 jobs right now, there is a business behind that. But because it's fun and games and content creation, the viewer, the consumer doesn't see that. But there's a lot of hard work that goes into making that, what, 3 million per year, 5 million plus per year. So I'm curious, having this discussion, what are your thoughts, and having children in the US, what are your thoughts on the traditional education system?
Wow, that's a loaded question, Nicole. Oh my goodness. Okay, so, and you know me, right? I like to peel the layers. So first, having been in different countries and have different education systems in my head, one of the first things that I'll mention is that the United States has one of the best education systems when you're in college, okay? Not before college. It's very interesting because a lot of people who haven't gone through these systems or haven't lived in other countries won't be able to talk about this, right? But that from elementary to high school, it's rubbish. Okay. It's just bad. And that's where we need, as parents, to do our best to give them every advantage that they can have. Now, they have every advantage. When you live in the United States, you have every advantage, but they do not have an educational advantage from elementary to high school. Now, something really amazing happens, and that's because I believe in the US college education system is very different to most other countries. You're allowed to walk different lives in the first 2 years, right? And then decide what's best for you if you're a serious student, and then become. You change significantly from that senior in high school when you went to college to the senior that's graduating from college. You're a very different person if you're serious about college. I'm not just talking about just study. If you're just serious about, building a wealth of knowledge and just experiencing college. That's why I say the US college education system is incredible. It's beautiful, right? Then something happens when you go on to the masters again, then something changes, right? They get laid down with a lot of debt and things like that. So what I believe is nowadays, it's not just like, it's so easy to look back and say, well, they need to go to college. They need to do this. Nowadays, you have to give them more and more skills because we're not getting that in the country, in our education system, element K through 12, right? You're not getting that. This is why I created this program, because when you give skills to the young, where they feel that they are becoming better human beings and they have better control of their lives, then they're distracted from the things that can really deviate their life, right? Because they have a self-confidence about them. They have a self-esteem about them. And then they begin to become leaders. That's what we need to do. K through 12 does not create leaders. Okay, college does. So we need to make sure that we have some kind of an effort in the K through 12 time period that we allow our kids to become leaders. Now, this does not mean giving them more Sylvan education or pushing them into tutoring or all that. No, I'll give you a very real life example. One of my kids, the teenager, the 13-year-old, he was having some difficulty last year with some adjustments, right, in his mind and with everything that was going on. And immediately I said, hey, he needs a coach. We have to get him an academic coach. Like, I'm great, I can push him, but I'm not there all the time, right? So I invested in interviewing some people from his school and knowing some tutors that I worked with. And I said, hey, let's coach him. And then these coaches also need your help. You need to work together as a group and say, hey, this is my goal. Let's bring him and see if he shares his vision. And let's allow to accomplish his vision, not our vision for him, right? And then it changed everything. He's now a passionate student, right? He wants to do better and better every day. It's because he now knows that you care. You're not just saying, hey, leave you there and try your best, study more, don't go out. You can't do that. So you got to have a better way. That's also where the self-awareness of you as an individual helps a lot, because you become a better parent.
Beautifully said. Wow. I think there's a lot we could go into on the education system, but I'm going to leave it there because, there's many different avenues and lots of different ways of thought around current education. But before we end off, where can people find you online?
Okay. So I have two different companies, right? One is Blackstone Commodity Group, which, by the way, as you know, we're changing our name to Bullionite Asset Group. Okay. And then the website right now for that is blackstonecommodity.com. Okay. So you can always go there. You can learn about investing, self-directed IRAs, alternative assets. You can see all the different media stuff that I've done. And the process of how to get in that, because our main goal is to allow clients, like, let's say if you have an IRA in the stock market or a previous 401k, and if you're worried about the market coming down or a recession, you can move that money into a self-directed IRA without taxes, without penalties, right? And then you can have physical metals or cryptocurrency or anything like that. Like, you can have it in an alternative asset that goes opposite to the market. So if the stock market drops, you could probably appreciate significantly in that move. The other thing is Bullionite.com. So Bullionite is the educational arm of my company, where we do a lot of this trader education, coaching, the youth trading program. All of that is done there. So it's Bullionite.com.
Amazing. And both of those links will be linked below. And thank you so much for being here and for sharing all of the knowledge that you've shared today. You've just listened to the Worldwise Wealth podcast. Visit our links in the show notes below or at worldwisecapital.com to learn more about how we can assist in your borderless diversification journey. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.